The stranger who hunted at midnight. The sky was dark. Not just night dark. It was the kind of darkness that felt alive. Thick clouds covered the moons of Yelvara 6. Cold wind blew across broken metal streets. Silence ruled this ruined alien outpost. In the middle of it, a woman sat alone in an old stone shelter hugging her daughter. Her name was Elia, a widow, once noble, now just another forgotten survivor. Her daughter Nira, only 6 rotations old, was shaking from hunger. For 3 days they had eaten nothing but dried roots and a few drops of water. Elia's arms were thin, her skin dull, but her eyes stayed sharp. She was not ready to die. Suddenly she heard a sound. Thump. Scrape. Thump. Footsteps. Heavy ones like boots dragging something across the ground. Elia's heart jumped. She grabbed a rusted blade, barely sharp enough to cut fruit. She looked outside through a crack in the broken wall. And then she saw him. A tall figure. Not alien. Not from Yelvara. A human. He walked like a beast. His clothes were torn. Blood stained his armor, not his blood. In one hand, he carried a giant knife. In the other, a dead creature. Something wild from the forest. Long teeth, blue fur, dangerous. Elia's breath froze. Why is a human here? She thought. Why is he carrying that thing? She hid Nira behind her and waited. But the man didn't come inside. He walked to a broken metal pipe outside and built a fire using dry bones and cloth. Then with quiet focus he skinned the beast, cleaned it, and began roasting the meat. He didn't speak. He didn't look around. He just worked. Like this was normal. Like this dead, empty world didn't scare him. The smell of cooked meat filled the air. Nira whimpered. Her tiny stomach growled loud. The human looked up, his eyes locking with Elia's. He didn't attack. He didn't scream. He just nodded. Then, he stood slowly and placed 3 hot pieces of meat on a flat rock. He slid it near the entrance of Elia's shelter, just close enough to grab, just far enough to be safe. He stepped back. Elia didn't move. She stared at him. He stared back. Was this a trap? Was he trying to fatten them like prey? Humans were not trusted. They were strong, violent, known for wars. But Nira cried softly now. She couldn't wait. Elia moved like a ghost, fast, silent. She snatched the meat and retreated. It was real. Hot. Cooked. Smelling like hope. She blew on a piece and fed Nira. The child's eyes lit up. For the first time in days, she smiled. Elia's chest ached. She hadn't seen that smile since her husband died in the last raid. Still, she didn't eat. She watched the man. He was now sharpening his blade under moonlight, sitting cross-legged. Calm. Alone. Why was he helping? Why didn't he speak? Why was he even alive on this dead planet? The next night he came again. This time he brought a different animal. Bigger, red-blooded, harder to catch. Again he cooked. Again he shared, but this time he spoke. You alone? He asked in broken alien tongue. Elia hesitated. Yes. Good, he said with a small smile. Means no noise. Quiet is good. He tossed a small water container toward her. It rolled on the dirt, stopping near her foot. She picked it up, smelled it, then drank. It was clean. Real, fresh water. The human leaned back and stared at the sky. This planet, ugly, but the stars, they still look like home. Elia didn't answer, but something inside her shifted. This man, this carnivorous stranger, wasn't just surviving. He was protecting her, feeding her, keeping a distance but never disappearing. On the 3rd night, Elia left a small flower near the fire pit, a sign of thanks in her culture. The man saw it, smiled, and for the first time he gave his name. Rhett, he said, pointing to himself. Rhett, From Earth. Elia blinked, then whispered, Elia. And from the shadows, Nira giggled. Rhett, she repeated, mispronouncing it. Rhett looked at the child and gave a small wave. That night, no one spoke again. But no one was scared. The fire between them was warm. The silence was soft. And the stranger who hunted at midnight didn't feel like a stranger anymore. Dinner with the monster. The next night, Rhett returned, not as a shadow but as a rhythm. His footsteps didn't frighten anymore. They were expected, welcomed, almost comforting. Elia didn't hide this time. She sat near the broken entrance, her daughter curled against her side, both wrapped in an old brown cloak. Her hands were still cold, but her heart didn't race in fear now. Rhett appeared from the trees, dragging a strange creature behind him. It had 3 legs, a thick hide, and eyes still glowing faint blue. Fresh kill. He threw it on the ground and pulled out his blade. Elia watched his hands. Precise. Fast. Like a man who had done this 100 times before. He didn't look up when he spoke. Saw tracks. Big ones. Something's hunting this area, not me. Elia frowned. What kind? Rhett shrugged. Don't know. Something I don't want to meet. She shivered. But he didn't seem afraid. Just aware. He sliced the meat into strips, placed them on heated metal, and let them sizzle over flame. The smell was strange, sour and spicy, but her stomach didn't care. Nira peeked out from under the cloak, sniffed, and smiled. Meat? Rhett looked at her and nodded. Meat. The girl crawled closer. Elia moved to stop her, but Rhett raised his hands gently. Safe, he said. Promise. He pulled out a small wooden bowl and placed a portion in it. Then, carefully, he handed it to the child. Nira looked up, her tiny alien fingers brushing against his rough human ones. Then she took the bowl and ran back to her mother. Elia stared at him. You do this often? She asked quietly. Feed people? Rhett smirked. Not really. Usually just me. I'm not a friendly type. Elia tilted her head. Why help us? Rhett didn't answer for a long time. The fire crackled. The meat sizzled. Finally, he said, Because last time I didn't. Elia blinked. Didn't what? He looked at her. His eyes weren't hard. They were tired. There was a family, he said, voice low. Alien. Like you. I saw them. They were starving. I had food. I walked away. He turned the meat with his blade. Next day, I found their bones. Silence. Nira chewed softly in the background. The stars above flickered like broken glass. Didn't want to feel that again, Rhett whispered. Elia didn't know what to say. She looked at the human in front of her, his strong arms, sharp knife, predator's body, and saw something different. A wound. Not on his skin. Deeper. You're not a monster, she said. Rhett smiled sadly. I eat monsters, maybe that makes me one. Elia stepped forward and picked up her share of food. She didn't retreat into the shelter this time. She sat beside him, a few feet away, and ate under the stars. It was quiet. Then, Nira came. Closer too, carrying a small stone toy, her only one. She placed it next to Rhett's foot and smiled. He looked confused. What's that? A gift, Elia said softly. In our culture, it means trust. Rhett picked up the toy, a crooked shape with carved eyes. He turned it in his fingers, then carefully placed it on his belt strap. I'll keep it, he said. Nira giggled. The fire glowed brighter. But peace never lasted long on this planet. Distant howl echoed from the forest. Low, deep, not like anything Elia had heard before. Rhett's body tensed instantly. He stood, grabbing his blade. Stay close to the wall, he ordered. Don't make noise. Elia grabbed Nira and backed up. Rhett scanned the shadows. Another howl, this time, closer, then silence. Minutes passed. No sound, no movement. The fire burned low. Rhett relaxed slightly. It's scouting, smells blood. Won't come near fire yet, Elijah whispered. Can you kill it? He didn't answer, just stared into the dark. I can try, he said finally. Then he sat down again and began sharpening his blade. The sparks danced in the night. Elijah stared at him. The man who hunted monsters, cooked meat, and now protected a child that wasn't. She wasn't sure what scared her more, the beast outside, or how much she wanted this stranger to stay, the village that hunted her. The morning light was weak, like a tired eye barely opening. Elijah hadn't slept. She kept watching the edge of the forest, where the last howl had come from. Nira slept peacefully beside her, clutching her stone toy, the one she gave Rhett. Rhett himself was already up, sharpening his blade again, eyes scanning the horizon like a soldier waiting for war. Elijah, he said without turning, you ever hear of something called a night tusk? Her heart froze. Yes, it's not real, it's a myth to scare children. Rhett shook his head. Saw the tracks. It's real, and it's close. He stood, brushed dirt from his pants, and pointed at the shelter. Stay inside today, don't leave. If I don't come back by sundown, run south. Elijah grabbed his arm. You're not going after it, are you? He looked down at her hand. It was trembling. I'm not hunting it, he said quietly. I just want to make sure it's not hunting you. And then he disappeared into the trees. The day was long. Elijah tried to stay calm for Nira's sake, but something in her chest felt wrong, like a thread had been pulled too tight. She stared at the forest's edge for hours, but Rhett didn't return. She was about to go look for him when she heard something else. A voice. Not Rhett's. Not human. A deep, familiar voice. Followed by another. Then another. She looked through a crack in the stone wall and gasped. 3 figures were walking through the ruins, cloaked in dark red armor, with jagged weapons strapped to their backs. Her old village's hunters. The same men who had shamed her, who blamed her for her husband's death, who said she and her half-born daughter were cursed. She had escaped them months ago, escaped their cold laws and brutal punishments, and now they were here. Elijah covered Nira's mouth gently and pressed her against the floor. We know you're here, Elijah, one of the hunters shouted. You can't hide forever. We saw the smoke. She held her breath. Another hunter laughed. You think you can live with outlaws and feed your child on scraps? You're a disgrace. One of them kicked open the shelter door. Empty. She had hidden herself and Nira under a pile of old furs in the back. Her breath came in short bursts. Nira clung to her silently, sensing the danger. One hunter picked up Nira's toy. What's this? A gift from your human pet? Elijah's eyes widened. They knew. You let him touch your daughter? The hunter snarled. You sleep under the roof of a meat-eater, a beast? You're filth. He dropped the toy and crushed it under his foot. Elijah's blood boiled, but she didn't move. Not yet. Then came the sound. A whisper, a shift in the wind. Then, crack. A figure landed from above. Silent, fast. Rhett. He hit the first hunter like a falling star. Blade, slicing across the armor, blood sprayed. The second hunter turned and roared, swinging his spear but Rhett ducked, twisted and broke his arm with a sickening snap. The third one tried to run. Rhett threw his knife. It landed in the back of the man's knee. He fell screaming. Elijah rushed out of hiding, pulling Nira behind her. Rhett stood in the middle of the blood-soaked ruin, chest heaving, blade dripping red. He turned toward her, and for a moment, Elijah felt fear, not of him, but of what he had become for her. Rhett wiped his blade on his sleeve and walked over. You okay? He asked. Elijah nodded slowly, eyes wide. You killed them. No, Rhett said. They killed themselves, the moment they walked in here. He looked at the crushed toy and frowned. Then silently, he knelt beside Nira and handed her something, a new one. Carved from wood, slightly crooked, but shaped like a protector, a warrior with a long blade. Nira stared at it, then hugged him. Rhett stiffened, and then gently patted her back. Elia looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Why? You didn't have to protect us. He looked at her serious now. You're not them. And neither is she. You deserve peace. She nodded. But inside her, something stirred. Something dangerous. Not fear, not pity. Hope. Tears and teeth that night, the stars seemed brighter, like they were watching. Elia sat by the fire, her arms around Nira, but her eyes were on Rhett. He wasn't sharpening his blade. He wasn't cooking. He was just sitting still, a quiet human shadow staring into flames. The blood from earlier was gone, washed off in the stream. But something lingered in the air, something heavier than death. Nira had fallen asleep in her lap, holding her new carved toy close to her chest. Elia gently placed her down on a soft fur and rose. She walked toward Rhett. He didn't move. I saw you hesitate today, she said softly. He looked up. Where? After you killed the second one. You paused. Rhett's jaw tightened. He begged, silence. I've killed many things, he added. Creatures, beasts, soldiers, I never used to feel anything. He picked up a stick and poked the fire. But today, when I looked at them, I felt something, disgust. Not because they fought me, but because they called you filth. Elia sat beside him, not too close, not too far. You didn't know me. You still don't, she whispered. I know enough, Rhett said. His voice was low, almost like he was afraid of it. You love her. You protect her. You never begged, never blamed. You survived. He turned his head, eyes meeting. That's rare. On Earth we had a saying, real strength hides in silence. You remind me of that. Elia blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her husband. Not her elders. Not even herself. Rhett, she said, voice trembling. You don't need to fight for us. You've done enough. You don't owe me anything. But maybe I want to, he said. She looked away, her hands curled into fists. You don't understand. In our culture, when a widow accepts help from a male outsider, she's marked, judged, called impure. They think I'm weak. You're not weak, he said without hesitation. You're still standing. The fire snapped between them. Glowing brighter for a moment, she smiled faintly. You say that like it matters. To me, it does. A long silence followed. The wind whispered through the broken metal ruins. In the distance, a creature howled, but it sounded far, like it knew not to come close. Rhett pulled something from his bag, a small metal cylinder. He pressed a button. A flickering hologram appeared above it, a woman, human, laughing, holding two children in her arms. Elia stared. Your family? Yeah, he nodded. My wife. Sons. She looked at the smile frozen in light. What happened to them? Rhett sighed. War. Alien war. Our ship was ambushed before we could escape. I was thrown into a pod. They weren't. He closed the device. The light vanished. I survived. Alone. Elia placed her hand gently on the ground near his. She didn't touch him, just closed the distance. I'm sorry, she said. He gave a small nod. Then, after a long pause, he said, But when your daughter hugged me today, I remembered what it felt like to be needed. Not feared, not used, just needed. Elia's chest tightened. She loves you, she said quietly. Rhett smiled, the first true smile she'd seen from him. I don't know why I'm rough, cold, I eat monsters. You're not cold, Elia said. You just have teeth. He looked at her, confused. In my language, she explained, a warrior who protects with violence is called Terran, the one who bites so others don't bleed. Rhett chuckled. Terran, I like that. She nodded. That's what you are. And then, without warning, a tear slipped down her cheek. Rhett saw it. His smile faded. Elia? She wiped her face quickly. Sorry. I don't cry often. Why? Now? She looked at the fire. Because I'm not scared anymore, she whispered. And I don't know what to do with that. Rhett reached out slowly, cautiously, like touching a wounded animal. He placed his rough hand over hers. You don't have to do anything, he said. Just rest. For the first time in years, she did. Not alone, not as a widow, but as someone seen. The adoption ritual. The next morning, the air was strange, still but not empty. It carried weight, like something sacred was about to begin. Rhett woke early, not from noise, not from danger, but from purpose. He stepped outside the broken shelter and saw Elia kneeling in the dust, drawing circles into the earth with her fingers. Inside each circle she placed a pebble. 3 circles, 3 stones in each. He didn't speak. He just watched. Elia stood and turned to him. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something heavy. Today is her naming day, she said. Nira's? Rhett asked. Elia nodded. In our tradition, it's the day a child chooses who they belong to, not by blood, but by soul. Rhett looked confused. She already belongs to you. She does, Elia said softly. But today, if she chooses, she can belong to you too. Rhett's chest tightened. I'm not. You are. She cut him off, voice firm. You already are. This is just the ritual. Rhett stared at the circles. What do I do? Elia picked up a piece of bone charcoal and placed it in his hand. Make your mark, she said. Show her where your spirit lives. Rhett stepped forward slowly. He crouched beside the circles and stared down. He wasn't a man of religion. He barely believed in fate. But somehow in that moment he understood. This wasn't about symbols. This was about choice. About love that wasn't asked for but freely given. He drew a small human symbol in the middle circle. A triangle with a slash. It meant shelter. A roof. A home. Then he stood back. Elia called out gently, Nira. The little girl walked over, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She looked at the 3 circles, then at her mother, then at Rhett. Do you know what this is? Elia asked. Nira nodded. Family. Good. Elia smiled. Now choose. Nira walked slowly to the circles. She stared at them one by one. Then, without speaking, she walked into the circle with Rhett's mark, sat down in the middle, and smiled up at him. My home, she said. Rhett blinked. His heart pounded. His throat was dry. He dropped to one knee, scooped her into his arms, and held her tightly. Elia stood still, watching them. Her hands trembled now. Not from fear, but from release. She had never thought this day would come. Not after the exile. Not after the shame. Not after losing everything. But here it was. Her daughter wrapped in the arms of a man not born of her blood, not of her world, but chosen by her soul. Rhett looked at Elia. I don't know what kind of father I'll be, he said honestly. I've never done this. I'm rough. I make fire with knives. I sleep with one eye open. Elia stepped forward. You don't need to be perfect, she whispered. You just need to stay. He nodded. Then I'll stay. Later that day, Elia brought out a bundle wrapped in red cloth. Inside it were pieces of metal, colored beads, old leather straps. This was my husband's, she said. It was our bond piece. Rhett frowned. You want me to wear his? No, Elia said. I want you to melt it, shape it into something new, something yours, something ours. He didn't speak. He just took it, held it close, and nodded. That evening, he melted the old bond piece in a makeshift fire. With stones, heat, and his own blade, he reshaped it into a ring, rough and uneven but strong. He carved a mark inside, a small triangle and a tiny circle beside it, shelter, and a child. He gave it to Elia without a word. She didn't need one. She slid it onto her finger and looked at him. There was no crowd, no celebration, no music, just fire, flesh, earth, and two survivors choosing each other. Not out of desperation, not out of tradition, but out of something deeper, trust. A proposal. Made of meat and fire smoke curled into the darkening sky like whispers rising from the earth. A storm was coming, not from the clouds, but from the land itself. Rhett could feel it. He stood alone, near the edge of the ruined compound, shirt off, skin smeared in dirt and blood, not his own. His muscles ached from the last hunt. His blade had dulled. But his focus was sharp. He had spent the day tracking a beast, something massive with iron-thick skin and yellow eyes. It had stalked near their camp. He killed it just before sunset, and now he was cooking its meat over a fire. But this wasn't just food. Not tonight. Tonight was a message. Elia stepped out from the shelter, holding Nira's small hand. The child ran ahead, laughing, chasing sparks from the fire. Elia's eyes locked onto Rhett's, and then dropped to the beast cooking on the flame. She recognized it. A marvok, she said softly. You hunted that alone? Rhett didn't answer right away. He reached into the coals, pulled out a thick strip of cooked meat with his blade and laid it on a flat rock. For you, he said. And for the tribe if they come again. Elia blinked. Why would you feed the same people who would have killed us? Rhett's eyes burned in the firelight. I'm not feeding them, he said. I'm warning them. She understood. This wasn't dinner. This was a declaration. A man with no army, no title, no banner, had hunted a legendary beast with his bare hands, and now he offered its meat like a challenge. Come closer, and see what I'll do. As the fire cracked and the wind howled, Elia sat across from him. She picked up a piece of meat and bit into it slowly. It was rich, tender, soaked in spice and heat, hard to chew, but satisfying. Rhett didn't eat. He just watched her. She finally looked up. Why did you bring it back? You could have eaten alone, left us food and vanished. Rhett leaned forward. Because this time I wanted to stay. Elia's breath caught. He pulled something from his belt. Not a ring, not a weapon, a tooth. Massive. White. Still warm. From the marvok. He handed it to her. In your culture, he said, they give stones or metals when they want to claim a mate. Elia's eyes widened. Yes. He nodded. I don't have stones, but I killed a monster and brought back its fang. She stared at the tooth. It was heavy, sharp, glowing faintly with heat. What does it mean? She whispered. He looked her in the eyes. It means I chose you. Not because I had to, but because when I fight, I think of you. The fire lit his face, highlighting the scars, the dirt, the shadows beneath his eyes. He wasn't beautiful. He was brutal, wild, but he was hers. Elia stood, walked around the fire, and stopped inches from him. You still have the choice to leave, she said. Rhett tilted his head. And if I stay? She lifted the fang. Then you're not just a protector, she said. You're my bond. And her father? He asked, looking past her at Nira. She already decided that. Elia smiled. Rhett nodded. Then, without words, she reached for his face and pressed her forehead against his. It wasn't a kiss. Not in her culture, it was more intimate, more sacred. Two warriors sharing breath, a bond sealed in silence. Later, they sat side by side, watching Nira sleep beside the fire. The beast's bones cracked and popped as the flames licked higher. You sure this isn't moving too fast? Rhett asked. Elia chuckled softly. On my world, we don't measure love in time. He raised an eyebrow. How then? She looked at him. In blood. In fire. In what you're willing to carry for someone else. Rhett leaned back, arms behind his head. Guess I've been carrying you both since day one. No, Elia whispered, resting her head against his shoulder. Now, we carry each other. Widow no more. The sky cracked open with thunder. Dust swirled like ghosts over the dead land. Rhett stood at the edge of the shelter, blade in hand, eyes locked on the hills beyond. They were coming. Not beasts, not shadows. The old tribe. This time, not just 3 hunters, a dozen, armor, spears, flags, and a new leader, tall, gold-marked, holding the torch of judgment. Elia stepped beside Rhett, dressed in her widow's robe one last time. But she wasn't hiding anymore. She looked the leader in the eye and spoke loud, clear. I am not yours to shame. The leader scoffed. You left your people. You lay with a savage. You raised your daughter in filth. She's more alive than any of your children, Rhett growled. And I don't need permission to protect my family. You claim her? The leader sneered. She's not even your kind. Rhett raised his blade slowly, pointing it at the torch. No, he said. She's better. The battle started fast. The tribe moved in formation, polished and proud. Rhett moved, like a ghost, sharp, brutal, without fear. Elia fought too, using the staff her husband once held, spinning it like wind. For the first time, Nira watched her mother not as a broken widow but as a warrior. Steel clashed, screams echoed, dust turned red. But this wasn't a story of war. This was a story of choice. Because halfway through the chaos, one of the tribe's younger warriors hesitated. He looked at Elia, at Rhett, at the child in the shadows, and he dropped his weapon. Then another did the same, until only the leader remained, bleeding, cornered, breath heavy. You polluted everything, he spat at Elia. Your bond is a curse. Elia walked up to him slowly, calm as the storm. No, she said. My bond gave me life, something your rules never did. Then she turned away and Rhett stepped forward. I could kill you, he said, but I won't go back. Tell your elders this land belongs to us now. The leader spit blood and limped away. That night the fire was quiet. The stars above were clear, as if the planet itself was finally breathing again. Nira sat in Rhett's lap, her hands sticky from cooked berries. Elia was cleaning her blade, her widow's robe finally tossed into the flames. Piece by piece it burned until only ashes remained. Rhett watched the fire, his arm wrapped around both of them. You sure about this? He asked for the last time. Elia smiled. I was never yours to win, Rhett. I was yours the day you stayed when no one else did. She walked over to him, holding a small thread, golden with 2 carved pieces tied in the middle. One was a fang, the other was a triangle. She tied it around his wrist. What's this? He asked. In our old ways, she said, widows wore black and lived alone. But in the new way, she leaned close. We build something better. Rhett looked at her, at the child now snoring in his arms and at the sky. I never imagined this, he whispered. Me. Here, with you. Elia rested her head on his shoulder. That's what makes it real. In the morning, the sun rose over quiet ruins. There was no crown, no throne, no cheering crowd, just 3 survivors, building a life from broken pieces. And the widow, she wasn't a widow anymore. She was a mother, a warrior, a woman loved not for silence, but for the fire she kept burning. And she was his, forever chosen, forever carried, in blood, in fire, and in a world that would never forget the human who gave her back her name.